Long ago, when the animals of the earth still spoke to one another, and the gods roamed freely between the heavens and the earth, there lived a wise and cunning tortoise. His name was Ijapa, and he was renowned far and wide for his wit. No animal could outsmart him in a game of words, nor could anyone defeat him in matters of trickery. But even the clever tortoise had one desire he could not fulfill: to ascend to the heavens and marry the daughter of Olorun, the great sky god. In the Yoruba lands, Olorun was the supreme being, ruling over the heavens and all creation. His daughter Aya was the most beautiful and intelligent of all beings, and many creatures, spirits and even demigods sought her hand in marriage. But Olorun had declared that Aya's hand would only be won by the cleverest of all creatures, one who could pass a series of challenges, not of strength, but of wit. This story you are about to hear is a tale of cleverness, perseverance, and wisdom, wrapped in the timeless proverbs of the Yoruba people. Let us journey into the heart of the celestial realm and witness how Ijapa, the tortoise, outsmarted all others in his quest for the daughter of the sky god. It was a day unlike any other. The sun hung high in the sky, casting its golden rays over the land below. Olorun, seated on his celestial throne above the clouds, looked down at the earth. He had grown weary of the constant petitions from creatures both great and small seeking to marry his daughter. Finally, Olorun decided that a contest would be held to determine who was worthy of Aya's hand. The challenge would not be one of physical strength, for Olorun knew that the strongest were not always the wisest. Instead, the suitor would need to demonstrate cleverness, cunning, and humility.
Olorun's voice, like thunder rolling across the land, echoed from the skies. Let all creatures who believe themselves wise come forth. A challenge will be held, and the victor shall marry my daughter, Aya. But heed my words, only the cleverest among you shall win. For the tasks will test your mind and heart, not your might.
The animals of the earth were stirred into a frenzy. Lions roared in anticipation, eagles soared higher, and even the smallest creatures, like the ants and the bush rats, began to prepare. Among them, standing quietly by a large baobab tree, was Ijapa the tortoise. While others boasted and bragged of their abilities, Ijapa merely smiled, for he knew that no one could match him in a contest of wits.
I will take the hand of the sky god's daughter, Ijapa whispered to himself, his small eyes gleaming with determination. For in the race of wisdom, slow and steady wins the prize.
The first task Olorun set before the animals was one of endurance and ingenuity. To marry my daughter, you must first reach the heavens, Olorun announced. But you may not use your wings, nor may you climb. You must find a way to ascend without flying or stepping.
The animals were confused. How could they reach the sky without wings or feet to carry them? The eagle spread his mighty wings, eager to take flight, but Olorun's challenge forbade it. The lion, with his powerful muscles, growled and tried to leap, but even his strength could not propel him high enough. The antelope, known for his great leaps, tried in vain to jump to the sky, but each time he fell back to the earth, defeated. Ijapa, however, was not concerned with such futile efforts. He had learned long ago that the slow and steady often find the easiest paths to success. As the other animals struggled and groaned, Ijapa sat beneath the shade of the baobab tree, watching them with quiet amusement. After a time, he stood and began to gather long, strong vines from the trees around him. He braided the vines together, twisting and turning them with great care, until he had a thick rope that stretched high into the air. He tied one end of the rope to the baobab tree, and began his slow ascent, inch by inch, up the vine. As the other animals watched, they gasped in astonishment. The lion roared in frustration, the eagle cawed in disbelief, and the antelope stood in silence, watching the tortoise climb higher and higher toward the heavens.
The proverb is true, Ijapa said as he climbed. The river that forgets its source will dry up, so too will those who forget their wisdom fall behind.
After many hours of slow but steady climbing, Ijapa finally reached the edge of the heavens. The sky opened before him, revealing a vast, shimmering landscape of stars and clouds. The celestial realm was unlike anything he had ever seen. The ground beneath his feet was soft like cotton, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers that did not grow on earth. Olorun's palace stood in the distance, a grand structure made of golden light and silver mist. The stars themselves seemed to bow as Ijapa approached, twinkling softly as if welcoming him to their domain. But Ijapa knew that his journey was far from over. Before he could claim Aya's hand, he would need to pass 2 more trials. Olorun awaited him at the gates of the palace, his eyes twinkling with the wisdom of ages. Aya stood beside him, her beauty radiant as the sun, her presence both intimidating and inspiring.
You have done well to reach the heavens, Olorun said, his voice deep and resonant. But your journey is not yet complete. There are 2 more tasks you must accomplish before you can marry my daughter. The first is a test of your mind, and the second is a test of your heart.
Olorun motioned for Ijapa to follow him, and together they walked into the palace, its golden halls glowing with an ethereal light. In the center of the palace, a vast chamber opened up before them, its ceiling stretching so high that it seemed to touch the very stars themselves. At the center of the chamber stood a great stone table, upon which lay a map of the heavens. The stars twinkled softly on the map, forming constellations and patterns that only the gods could fully understand.
For your second task, Olorun said, you must solve the riddle of the stars. If you answer correctly, you may proceed to the final trial. But if you fail, you will be cast back to the earth, and your journey will end here.
Olorun raised his hand, and the stars on the map began to shift and dance, forming a single, glowing constellation. The riddle echoed in Ijapa's mind.
I am always hungry, but I never eat. I am always thirsty, but I never drink. What am I?
The lion, who had arrived at the celestial palace soon after Ijapa, growled in frustration. The eagle, perched high in the rafters, screeched in confusion. None of the animals could understand the riddle, for it was not a question of strength or speed. But Ijapa, with his sharp mind and patient heart, smiled to himself. He had heard this riddle before, in the tales told by the elders of his village. He knew the answer.
The answer is fire, Ijapa said confidently. Fire is always hungry, for it devours all that it touches, and yet it drinks nothing.
Olorun smiled, pleased with the tortoise's cleverness. You are indeed wise, Ijapa. You have passed the test of the mind, but now you must face the test of the heart.
Olorun led Ijapa to the palace courtyard, where Aya stood waiting. Her beauty was beyond description, her presence as serene as a calm river, and as radiant as the sun. Ijapa, though filled with admiration, knew that he must remain focused on his final task.
The last trial, Olorun said, is not one of mind or body, but of heart. You must show humility, for only those who are humble can truly be wise.
Ijapa pondered the challenge. He was known for his cunning and his cleverness, but humility was not something he had often practiced. He had always prided himself on his ability to outwit others, to find solutions where others saw none. But he understood the wisdom in Olorun's words.
The smallest among us can hold the greatest power, Ijapa thought. Even the tortoise must bow before the wisdom of others.
Olorun continued, to pass this trial, you must bow before the smallest creature and ask for their help. Only through humility will you find the way forward.
Ijapa nodded and began his search for the smallest creature. He wandered the celestial realm, passing by grand spirits and powerful beings, each more magnificent than the last. But none of these could help him, for they were not the humble ones he sought. At last he came upon a tiny ant, crawling along a branch of a celestial tree. The ant was so small that most creatures would have overlooked it entirely. But Ijapa knew that even the smallest beings could hold great wisdom.
Great Ant, Ijapa said, bowing low before the tiny creature, I am in need of your wisdom. Will you help me?
The ant, surprised by the tortoise's gesture, replied, What could I, a small ant, possibly do to assist the great Ijapa?
Ijapa smiled humbly. The wise say that a single grain of rice can tip the scales. Even the smallest among us has the power to change the world.
The ant, pleased by Ijapa's humility, led him to a hidden passage within the celestial realm, a passage that only those with humble hearts could see. Through this passage Ijapa would find the way to the final chamber, where Aya's hand awaited him. With the ant's guidance, Ijapa entered the final chamber of the celestial palace. The room was filled with the light of 1,000 stars, each one glowing with the warmth and wisdom of the heavens. Aya stood in the center of the room, her eyes shining with admiration for the tortoise who had proven himself worthy of her hand.
Olorun, standing beside his daughter, smiled at Ijapa. You have passed all the trials, not with strength, but with wisdom, cunning, and most importantly, humility. You are truly deserving of my daughter's hand.
Ijapa, though filled with pride at his accomplishments, bowed low before Olorun and Aya. I am honored, great Olorun, he said, his voice humble and sincere. But I know that my victory was not mine alone. It was the wisdom of those who came before me, the guidance of the smallest creatures, and the grace of the gods that brought me here.
Aya stepped forward, her smile radiant. You have shown yourself to be not only clever but also kind and humble. I will gladly be your wife, and together we will rule the stars with wisdom and love. A grand celebration was held in the celestial palace, with all the gods and spirits in attendance. The stars themselves seemed to dance in the sky as Olorun blessed the union of his daughter and Ijapa. Ijapa's story became legend, not only in the celestial realm but also among the creatures of the earth. The animals, once doubtful of the tortoise's abilities, now spoke of his cleverness and humility with great respect. From that day on, Ijapa was known as the wisest of all creatures, and his story was told for generations to come. The Yoruba people, too, remembered his tale, passing it down through proverbs and stories. They reminded one another that strength is not always the path to victory, and that sometimes the slow and steady tortoise can outwit even the mightiest of animals. In the words of the elders, the sky is wide enough for all birds to fly without colliding, and so it was that Ijapa, the clever tortoise, found his place among the stars,